Your phone numbers, depending on if you want to give them a cell number, if you want to give them your parents' number, if you want to give them an email address, and well, obviously you do want to give them an email address, and anything else that should go up there in the contact information. Really important, if you're a student, I see a lot of students put a permanent address and then a current address to let the organization know that they, maybe they live in Marietta, but they're in school at Mercer, so they give both addresses to make sure that you can be gotten in touch with. Sometimes resume writers will include the name of their profession. In this, the gradient doesn't go down to cover this, and I know you can't read this. This is just meant to be a visual. But the objective of your resume goes right there with the heading. And every resume should have some form of an objective. And that's where you really tailor your resume. The objective should be something like to obtain a position as a computer software developer for blank company. Something like that. It should be very specific, tailored to the job you're applying for, and usually mentioning the company that you want to work for. So you can include the name of your profession in that area. And sometimes you can have some objectives that are a little bit longer than a sentence, but usually a sentence or a phrase. And I want to show you some examples of how to write an objective in just a moment. So that's the heading and the objective. The resume body is the middle of the resume, and that's where you typically put your work experience, your education experience, if you have any military experience, if you have any internships, if you have, sometimes students will list relevant coursework in the middle of their resume, specific courses that might be relevant to that job so that the employer knows that they've had training in those specific areas. If you have computer languages that you know or certain skills or certifications, would go in the middle there. There are probably 4 or 5 different ways to arrange your resume, and that really depends on your stage and station in life. If you're an older person and you've got 20 years of experience, and it's been 20 years since you got your degree in say, in computer science, then you may want to do something that's called a functional resume and list your experience first, because your experience is more recent, it's more relevant, and your degree is kind of older. It's still a relevant degree, but it's older, and your experience is newer. In your case, as a student, you probably want to do everything in reverse chronological order and list your education first. You list your education from the most current education to what you got before. If you came to Mercer from another school, you would list your Mercer degree first and then the other school. Then you list your experience in reverse chronological order, listing the most present experience you had down to the job that you had 3 or 4 years ago. And then if you have any publications, anything interesting like that, would also go in the middle. And I'm going to show you some examples of the heading in the middle and the conclusion of the resume so you can see what this should actually look like. The bottom of the resume should present other related information like your activities, any professional associations you belong to, any memberships. You can even list hobbies and interests, but you got to be careful about that. I have a student right now who's a member. I didn't know that Mercer had a breakdancing club, but he's a member of the breakdancing club, and he's very, very excited about being a member of the breakdancing club. In 5 years, I don't know that he should put that on his resume, you know. It depends. If he wants to show that he's got kind of a perky side of himself, that's okay. But if you've got some hobbies that are kind of mainstream, you know, put them on there. If they're a little quirky, if you ever watch The Big Bang Theory, and you know those guys can debate forever about who is really the true Robin, or the best Batman, or something like that. And they do a lot of gaming and things like that. They're kind of obscure. You know, may not want to put that on your resume, depending, you know, unless you're applying to be a computer game designer or something like that. 2 questions I would want to ask you here. Career Services is the resume and cover letter kingdom on campus. They will tell you how to do a resume and cover letter. If you don't know how to do one, you can take the one you have to them. They will proof it. They will give you all kinds of help on it. And they kind of manage the format of most student resumes. In fact, when students turn in resumes to me, I can tell the ones that have been through career services because they have a kind of a Mercer format that they apply. And so most of those resumes look the same because of that. Now, career services believes that your resume should be only one page. Okay? Now, I differ with that just a little bit, very respectfully, because there's a good reason it should be only one page. Like she asked me, when I got resumes at Raytheon, I would spend maybe 10 minutes on them. If they were one page, it was easy to scan and make a decision right away whether they went in the yes or no file. However, if that person had credible information about their experience, their education, things that they knew how to do, and it took more than one page to tell me that story, I would rather know that information than not know that information. I would rather you include that information on a second page, even if it only takes up half the second page, than not include that information. Because as an employer, I want to know as much as I can about you. Now, you shouldn't fill up the second page with a bunch of filler stuff, but if you do have credible information and it spans over to the second page, I personally don't think that you should start chopping stuff out just to keep it at one page. That's my personal opinion based on my experience as an employer. So I differ a little bit about career services with that. The second thing is references. Career services says that you should say references available upon request and have the employer just ask you if they're interested in interviewing you or possibly hiring you, ask you for your references. As a former employer, I always like to see the references right there on the resume because then I knew who that person was associated with, who could speak for that person, and sometimes, in some cases, if I was really interested in the person but I wasn't sure if I should interview them or not, I might call or email one or more of the references just to get a preliminary check on the person before I actually brought them in, especially if they were from out of town and I was going to have to pay to bring them in to interview them. I would do a little bit of background checking. So there's an argument for, you know, why not go ahead and put your references on the second page of the resume or possibly in an email follow-up to the employer just to let them know of your associations and give them a way to get some information about you. The attitude of career services is that, you know, you should not do that until the employer is ready to check your references. And I can see the point there too. But just based on my experience, I think why not tell your potential employer everything you can about yourself, as long as you do it appropriately and you don't take up a lot of paper and don't take up a lot of their time. So that's just my opinion. And they know that's how I feel, and that's what I teach in TCO 341. And then when I invite them in to do a resume presentation, they sort of take back everything I say and fill the other side out of it. So, but both sides have equal weight. It's just depending on, you know, what you think about it. Now, the role of the cover letter is a little bit different, obviously, than the resume. It's not just a letter that you write to go on top of the resume so that you've got a cover, a nice thing to go with the resume. Again, there's a formula to writing the cover letter so that you do it well. You want to draw a clear connection between the job you're looking at and your qualifications in the resume. And this is where you look at the job duties listed in the job description, you look at your experiences in your resume, and you try to tie them together and use the same terminology. This is where you make the connection, where you make your case for the job. The letter, you want to match the requirements of the job, the actual words in the job description with your qualifications, telling them how right you are for the job. You don't want to summarize the resume, but selectively use pieces of your resume in the cover letter, again, to build your case for this. Okay, there are three parts of the cover letter that you need to look at. Okay, the first paragraph is what sets the tone for the rest of the letter. It has a very specific purpose. Number one, you want to state the purpose of the letter and tell them that you are inquiring about a potential employment opportunity and you're expressing your interest in that position. You want to, and this is very important, tell them how you found out about the position. Employers want to know where you heard about the position because they want to know how their advertising is working. If you found it online, in a newspaper, a friend told you, they want to know how you found out about that because they want to know where and how to advertise for jobs. And in that first paragraph, you want to state one thing about yourself that will get their attention. Because if you don't have their attention by the first paragraph, they very well may not read the rest of the cover letter. So you want to state one eye-catching, attention-getting thing about yourself that's related to the job, such as I'm applying for a software developer position in this company. I am very skilled in, and you could list some languages that may be pertinent to that job and get their attention right away. So you want to tell them why you're writing, tell them how you found out about the job, and then state something important. That's the first paragraph. You should have 3 or 4 paragraphs only in the cover letter, 3 or better. In the middle paragraph, you want to talk about your work experience and your education. The order of that is up to you. If your work experience is really relevant to the job you're applying for, you want to talk about that first. If your degree is more important and more relevant, you want to talk about that first. The most important thing you have to do here is to make sure that the reader sees the match between how qualified you are based on your education and your experience and the job you're applying for. And the way you write the cover letter is to have the job description right here and your cover letter right here, and make sure that you're using the same words from the job description to the cover letter, okay? If you're hitting the words in the job description, when the employer's going to see that, they're going to recognize those words and realize that you are connected to that position and that you may make a good potential hire for that position. The last paragraph, very important. You want to quickly summarize your qualifications in maybe a sentence or 2. You want to tell them how they can get in touch with you and tell them when are the best times that you can come in and talk with them. And you want to encourage them to contact you to arrange an interview. Last paragraph, very important. Give them contact information in that last paragraph, because a lot of times when a resume and a cover letter come in, the cover letter gets separated from the resume. The resume may be given to the person in the graphic arts department. The cover letter may be given to a manager. If you don't have contact information in the cover letter and they get separated and the manager wants to contact you but doesn't know how, doesn't know where the resume ended up, then you're sunk. So you want to make sure you have repetitive information about how to get in touch with you in both documents. Let me show you a couple of examples. We'll start with I've got copies of this, so let's see. I keep going. Go ahead and pass them. Go ahead and pass those back to you. What I've done is put together a cover letter and a resume, and I've annotated them with some comments. Yeah, they're front. Oh, that was my original. Let's see, that's the front and back. Let me keep that one. Sorry about that. These are my originals. What I've done is I've taken a cover letter that's pretty standard, pretty well written, and I've annotated it with some helpful comments. And I've taken a resume and I've done the same thing, annotated it with some helpful comments. I want to show you these 2, and then I want to show you a couple of actual resumes and cover letters and just dissect them quickly for quality, tell you what you should look at. Let's look at the cover letter portion first, okay? You'll notice this is on just a blank piece of white paper. There's no letterhead. That's because it's a personal letter. The person's writing just from themselves. They've got their inside address at the top, and then they've got an inside address for the recipient. And this is just made up. This is just a made-up company, Georgia Engineering Operations. It's a business letter, so it is using business format. The salutation has a colon. The paragraphs are not indented. They're separated by a line of white space. The first paragraph says where they learned about the position, tells them that they have the necessary qualifications, and says, I was an industrial engineer at this company, and I really hope you can assist me in finding a job at your company. The second paragraph tells specifically information about the degree. It talks about computer programs and a service position in a student organization. The third paragraph, which is acceptable if you have enough information for it, is a work experience paragraph. And this person is writing as a student who doesn't have a lot of work experience, at least a lot of full-time work experience. So they're using the approach that the jobs I've worked and what's kind of not in parentheses there, which may not be exactly relevant